Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. So, today, give you a little bit more context of what we're going to talk about. It's really much about applied AI for the rest of us. And so, what it is as a non tech person, I've been able to navigate machine learning, which was what AI used to be, by building workflows. And so, the idea here is that we can build AI workflows that free your time and accelerate your career. And so, really, the people who win in AI aren't the most technical people. They're the ones who know how to apply it the most. And my goal for this session is you guys walk away with at least 2 to 3 things that you can use with AI that makes you a little bit more confident than before. And so, before I get started, a little bit of my background. So, I was a media and tech executive. And as I walked away from it to get my doctorate, so now Dr. Erika Nuñez. And when I was doing that, I had always been consulting, and my company is called Cerebral Labs. And what I saw when I was doing a lot of my research for behavioral economics was that machine learning and AI was very relevant to everything that we were talking about in the theoretical world. And so for me, I really want to package up what I talk to with companies in my consulting business and be able to give you guys a playbook of what it is. And so to get started, my goal is to take you from survival to strategy. And so why this movement matters, and particularly in our community, is we all know that AI disruption is real. We all see the layoffs happening. We all have the uncertainty. The estimated jobs, so about 85 million jobs will be disrupted by AI by 2030. And that's a very, very low level estimate. The expectation is that it'll be more, but this is just based on the data that we have now. And so our Latina talent historically has been excluded. We're really only 8% of tech workers, 8% of tech workers are Latina, and that changes now. AI is very much an opportunity for us to have a reset moment. And so early movers gain the most. And really, I believe that that's us right now. We come with very colorful stories. We come with a lot of imagination. And that's something that you don't see a lot in the tech world. And now, with having the ability to leverage AI, it gives us that technical component that we were missing before. And so this isn't really about catching up. This is the way that I see it. It's about claiming our seat at the table before the table gets built without us. And so meeting an AI operator. Before I start here, I want to take a step back and talk about how I think of AI because I feel like AI is such a broad term that in my research and in my consulting with startups that leverage AI highly, the best use that I've seen of AI is to have AI very much as a thought partner. So the way to think about it is your really smart friend. And we all have the friend that we ask questions to, or the friend that's done it before, or the older sibling that has helped us navigate things like school or something else. Really, if you think of AI in that component, it helps you because I think a lot of people are thinking of AI as a replacement tool, but it's very much something that can give you a superpower when used correctly. And so what I call meeting the AI operator is very much what I plan to give you guys in information. And so I wanted to delineate between how I see it and then what I see it as not being. And so to me, an AI operator is not this. It's not a coder. It's not a prompt hobbyist, and it's not a tech bro. I love my tech bros, but it's very much a workflow designer. And what I mean by workflow is very much everything that you're doing, something as simple as writing an email, breaking it up into steps and saying, okay, this is the workflow for writing an email. It's a leverage multiplier. It's very much taking that workflow and then expanding it into something different, which we all have experience in with our backgrounds. And then it's very much a strategic operator. And when I say strategic operator, I mean somebody that can start to see the patterns when you really start to work through it, and you can actually build a strategy around it for very specific pockets of what you're doing in the working world. And it's very much from taking problems or challenges. It's using the AI tools, which is where we are in the AI journey. And then from here, it's building those workflows, which is a little bit of what people are doing right now. It's very much going to be a big component next year, and probably at the end of this year. And then it's having those outcomes. And so here is my 4 steps. So I've cut this presentation up into 4 steps. It's very much an AI implementation roadmap. So the first step is identifying the high value workflows. And so think about what you do during the week. Start to write it down on what are the things that repeat themselves. We all have those Monday morning meetings. We all have those all hand meetings. We all have those meetings that are consistently the same thing. Then the next step is taking that after you've identified it, taking it and breaking it into steps. So thinking about the input, the process, and the output. So the thing behind this, like a good example is a meeting, right? So you have a meeting that's probably a weekly meeting. What you do is you get your notes together right before. That would be your input. The process is you have one team that goes first, another team that goes second. So you already know what the agenda is going to be. And the output, it's really taking those two things and saying, okay, here is how I'm going to make my updates better, or how I'm going to leverage them in a different way. And so the third part is applying the AI tools. This is the part where I mentioned everybody is, but everybody's doing it a little bit differently. And so the live examples and walkthroughs are really important. And then the fourth is building that workflow that I'm talking about. And it's really about making it repeatable. So using prompts, which most of us are familiar with, then using templates, and then from those templates, creating repeatable workflows that will help you. And it'll help you save time. So for me, AI isn't magic. I think everybody that talks about AI talks about this thing. We don't know exactly where it's going to go. But I mentioned to you guys, I was a media and a tech executive. So I saw the introduction of social media. I saw the introduction of streaming. The same thing is happening. So I see the same patterns happening. So I'm not scared by it, because I do know from both social media and streaming, the technology is only as smart as you allow it to be and as you want it to be. And so I feel like there's a power that we have as AI users that doesn't get talked about as much, because there's so much focus on we don't know what's going to happen with it. And so living in that ambiguity, let's talk a little bit more about that first step that I lined out. So it's very much about identifying a high value workflow. And so question to the audience, to you guys, would be, what's something that you repeat every week? So I mentioned this earlier today. You guys are probably already starting to think about it, which I'm hoping. There's things like emails, right? So there's weekly emails that I send as like a status update. There's reporting that gets pulled, that either you're on the team that pulls the reporting, or you're on the team that's digesting the reporting and trying to get insights from it, or you're on the team that's making the decisions based off of those insights. Those things are always repeatable in companies. There's things like research that you have to do. And there's things like quantitative research, right? The numbers that you pull. Or there's qualitative research, right? You look at things like social media and like, are people liking the stuff that you're putting up there? Or is there something else? Is there something else that you found in the research that maybe highlighted something different for you? And so things like that. Then there's the content. So there's the writing of the emails. There's the communication that you have, say, with your manager or with your direct reports, or to the people with your team, like the people that you're collaborating with. And then there's the operational tasks. Operational tasks is probably where I think you can leverage AI the best, because the operational tasks are pretty consistent, especially the way that companies are set up right now. It's very much a repeatable thing. Like, you always know what's going to happen in first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And so the question that I would ask you to ask yourself is, where is time being wasted or repetitive work like happening? And a lot of times we don't think about it because we're going so fast and we're multitasking on multiple things. But if you take just 5 to 10 minutes to think about it, you'll find that you'll have about like 5 to 8 different tasks that you're like, oh, those tasks I could actually automate. And it's very much about having this conversation with yourself. The other way that I think about it is I started leveraging AI for the tasks that I don't like to do. I feel like we can all relate. There's tasks that you kind of put off. I tend to be the person that distracts myself with cleaning or doing something different, so then I can tell right away that I'm avoiding a certain task. And those are the tasks that you can use or you can leverage AI to. You could do workflows around it of identifying the repeatable things that happen, and then look at prompts that you can do, and from there leverage that ability. And so your high value workflow is something that repeats weekly, takes more than 30 minutes, and has a clear output. So once you have that list of 5 to 8 tasks, run it through these 3 things and start repeating or developing those workflows from there. And from there, you'll start to see that it may not, when you take a step back, you're like, okay, I don't know necessarily where this is going to go, but the next 3 steps are going to help you sort of augment that. And so the breaking into steps is step 2. And so the example that I can think about that's probably relatable to everybody is writing a weekly report. So we all talk about making data-driven decisions, and weekly reports are very much a part of what we do every day. And so the input that we have is raw notes, data, emails. We have reports that we pull together. And then we have the process, which is the structure and outline and analyzing and then drafting what those insights are. And then there's the review of it. So the editing and the personalization. So say you may have the same data set, or you may take this weekly report, but the way you message it to the upper management is different from the way you message it to, say, your peers or to an external facing client. And then there's the output, so the polished deliverable. And so where AI plugs in is very much that process, because that process is rigid. It very much has a timeline. So you can tell if it's more than 30 minutes. And so when you start to look through that, this is where you can start to say, okay, here's the process of taking that report and then putting it into different sort of voices. And so identify that piece, which we'll talk about a little bit more in step 3. But if you can't break it into steps, well, most likely AI won't be able to help you. If you can, then AI can do it in seconds. And so I mentioned the 5 to 8 tasks. By now, we're probably down to 4 or 5 tasks that are repeatable that you can break into steps. If you can't break it into steps, it will not work with AI, because AI is very much at a point right now where it can take that repeatable information. Now, I've been in some conversations where we're talking about AI research and where it's going to be. We all have seen how fast it's developed. So by the end of the year, this presentation might actually be a little bit different, because AI's capabilities have probably 10x'd by the end of the year. And so this brings me to step 3, the live AI workflow example. And so what that looks like is very much like a career. You can look at 3 different things. There's a career growth workflow, which is resume, AI optimization, interview prep session, and then networking message drafts. And the way to think about it is, say, if you're looking to change careers and you have particularly been in a space where it's been very traditional. I can take my example. So I was in media for 10 years, very much focused on streaming. And so one of my clients, right when I was finishing my doctorate, was a company that was called X-Wing. And so X-Wing is an autonomous aviation company. And people always asked, how did you go from media to an airplane company? So I'm not a pilot. I'm actually scared to fly, which everybody found funny. And so the way that I did it was I played with AI and I said, okay, I have a skill set. I have been a part of emerging technologies that were in industries that were older than like 50 years old. The media industry is over 100 years old. And so my big thing that I was able to do is I was able to optimize those businesses as a non-tech person, which doesn't happen often. But the thing that I liked is optimizing the businesses and then being able to transition them with technology. It's very much what my doctorate thesis was. And so when I was talking about my thesis with the CEO of this company, they were experiencing the same problem. So what a lot of companies are experiencing is the industries have been around for a long time. And so I talk about those time frames and those processes. Those processes sometimes have been around for 10 plus years, 15 plus years, 20 plus years. And so with AI, you have the ability to leverage that technology to make that process go faster and more efficient. And so it was very interesting because at the fundamental level, looking at my resume, it was very media and tech focused. So you wouldn't have thought the X-wing and the aviation space would be something that would be interesting, but it was exactly the same problems at the core level. And so for career growth workflows, you can think about it like that. And I mentioned earlier that if you think of AI as a thought partner, so if you think of AI as somebody like a friend or an older sibling or just an older relative, if you start to ask questions of here is what I do, here are the careers that I want to go into or the jobs that I'm interested in, can you line map where my resume fits, like where my skill set is? And those are things that we usually can do on our own, but they're a little hard to do if you don't know much about the industry or if you're trying to break into a new industry. But with AI, you're able to upload your resume, have an AI optimization of your resume. And then even then, when you're going through the interview process, a lot of times there's multiple interview processes. So you can really leverage AI as that thought partner to say, okay, here is who I'm meeting with. Here are the conversational pieces that I want to bring up. And then what is traditionally the space of the questions that they ask or the culture fit. And those are really important things that, again, we can do research on our own. But if we have that thought partner conversation with AI, there's a lot of insight that AI could leverage or surface for us that we may not be able to see on our own. And very much the networking messages drafts. So a lot of times with consulting, people ask me how I get a lot of my clients, and a lot of it has been through conversations like this of just talking about my work, talking about my thesis, talking about the research that I'm doing. And a lot of times you'll find that when you're talking through these things, especially with social media, you can leverage social media. People are interested. And so sometimes you'll have a social media post about something, but then you get interest about something else. And so that really keeps the conversation going. And AI is very good for that. There's also the productivity workflow. This is the one that's probably the most common to all of us. So the thing like meeting notes and summaries, really having the automatic task extraction, and then from there, having AI draft the follow-ups. So we all have walked into meetings where we're prepared, we know exactly what we're going to talk about, and then the meeting doesn't follow the agenda, or it happens to be about something else completely different than what we're prepared for. And the best thing right now that AI has been helpful for is to be able to navigate some of those conversations. So having things like meeting notes and summaries is something that it used to be one person had to do. Now there's so many AI tools that just do it for you, which is so nice, especially for people that like miss the meeting, or there's things sometimes that the AI tool actually leverages that you're like, oh, I didn't even hear that in the meeting. I was listening to something else. So pretty interesting. So having the automatic task extraction from that, very much, there's a lot, like I mentioned, there's a handful of AI tools that we can use. Google in particular has a really, really good one. And then there's the AI drafted follow-up. So sometimes this is where I is a little bit new. So sometimes in those AI meeting summaries, the AI does a very good job of extracting all of the information. The thing that it still needs a little bit of help with is the context. So sometimes you'll see the meeting notes and you're like, wait, that's a little bit different than what actually happened. And that's where I think we can come in, because if we're thinking of AI as a thought partner, we have the ability to build that context for the AI tools and make it a little bit more powerful than just a tool that just takes those meeting notes. So then Third one is very much the research workflow. So it used to be that if you were thinking about tapping into a new market or thinking about a new product or thinking about, okay, how do you grow this product X%? You would have to think about, okay, what is the problem statement? And then what is the insights that we're trying to get or our hypotheses? And so with a lot of research workflows, the thing that's pretty consistent across the board is the topic of the research workflow and then the structured insights. Like I said, sometimes it's hypotheses, sometimes you know what you want to extract from the data, but you don't necessarily know how the data is going to come out. And so the thing that has been extremely helpful is AI comparison tables. Claude in particular is extremely good at this. You can upload raw data to Claude. It will build it out in tables that are digestible. So back in the day, what we used to do is we used to extract all this data, put it in Google Docs, and then you had Google Docs that had over 50 tabs that crashed people's computer when people actually opened them up. There's a lot of companies that are still working in that. And so the idea is you could take that whole document, upload it to a platform like Claude, and Claude will build out tables that are actually digestible. So instead of having somebody go through all the data and build out the tables and the maps, you actually have the ability to use AI to leverage some of that. And so it gives you more time. I have an example, a work example. We used to have a team of 15 different analysts that used to pull reports on a weekly basis, used to put them together, used to provide reporting that was a little bit digestible, and they used to have to provide 3 different versions of the same report. One was for our CEO, the second one was for the executives, so we could digest the information, which they want. There was the highlights, and then the other one was for the teams that needed the information. So things like product iteration, like it informed product iteration, it informed engineering cycles, it informed things that we maybe needed to fix or things that we could maybe do without. And so that whole process would happen on a monthly basis. The first 2 weeks of the month would just be focused on that. And the idea was we don't distract the team from doing any of that work. We were able to bring AI, and this was, we called it machine learning at the time. This was about 10 years ago. And so we were able to do AI. We were able to do SQL coding, where we, instead of everybody going into all the different platforms to actually pull the data and put it in one report, the tasks were automated through SQL. And so the SQL code would actually go in and log into all the platforms, say like Amazon or other platforms. It would pull the data, put it in a raw document. And so what happened was our analysts got really excited because instead of them having to spend their time pulling all of this data, they were able to actually spend most of the time actually analyzing and doing the fun part, which is what they called it. Like it was very much something that made their job a lot easier and that gave them the ability to actually learn a lot more from the insights. And that was really interesting. So now with things like Claude in particular has impressed me the most. And I've tried all the tools out there. Claude does a very, very good job of not having hallucinations. It's very limited in hallucinations. Of course, it's still awesome, but it does a beautiful job of extracting it for somebody that's non-technical or non-analytical. Perfect. Okay, so step 4. Let me see how we're doing. Perfect. Okay, so we're doing good on time. Wanted to make sure we're doing okay on time. So step 4 is turning it into a repeatable system. I've sort of been talking about this non-officially, but it's very much about saving your prompts. So one of the things that you'll find, and this is a little bit, you guys may have talked about it already, but a little bit of a cheat code is sometimes you will prompt either Claude OpenAI or any of the LLMs something, and then the information that it repeats back to you makes no sense, or it's not at all like what you wanted it to do. And so one of the cheat codes that I've been able to find along the way that has been really helpful is sometimes you can actually really use LLMs as a thought partner, and ask it, I need this. And you'll say, I need a report that shows, and you can have the very specific things. You can have who your audience is for. You can ask it to give you the prompt for an LLM. And what you'll see when you do that is it actually gives you a very technical prompt, a prompt that maybe a coder or an engineer would put in or know to put in the LLM, but not necessarily somebody that's not technical. And I know that for me, I speak for myself really when I'm saying that. What you find when you use, when you leverage LLMs in that way is it'll give you a prompt that's extremely powerful. And you would be able to use it in different LLMs. And so when you will see that you'll have prompts that you use that give you the exact result that you want, and sometimes even exceeds your expectation. And so what you will start to do is you'll start to build your prompt library. And it's something that every startup that I'm working with now has. It makes a lot of the tasks just plug and play instead of writing things through the LLM. And what it also does is when you're working with LLMs, if you're working in projects, it starts to get really smart. And sometimes I've had examples with startups where before we even ask for the report on the Monday or the Tuesday, the LLM already knows, and it actually has the report ready for us when we logged in. So it's starting to get really smart in that sense, and it's pretty cool. And so sometimes if you find that you're entering a prompt and the prompt isn't necessarily what you want, what you can do is you can change the conversation and say, okay, here is what I need to present, or here is what I need to deliver. Here is how I would like to do it. Can you develop a prompt for an LLM? So it kind of, in a way, teaches you how to talk to itself, which is really cool. And so every great prompt is a reusable asset. What I mentioned, the library. So I'm working with one company right now. It's an AI app development company. Their prompt library is over 500 pages. And so there's so many things. And they just started doing this in January. So that library is going to continue to grow, but already they're working so much faster. The other thing that I've seen is a lot of people will have these prompt libraries by themselves, and then they come into the team and they will say, hey guys, we should develop a company prompt library, which is something that some people haven't thought about. And so then you kind of become the AI operator in that sense. And so you learn as you go with a lot of these things. The thing that I love is learning. And so I feel like when you think of AI as a thought partner, you really have a lot of fun because it's very much that individual that has a plethora of information and sometimes surprises you. So it keeps you on your toes. And so creating the templates. I mentioned that once we started for one of the startups that I was working with, it had reports that it already knew that we needed. And so it very much knew the templates that we had created. And so the document workflow steps, you can really make it a plug and play for the next time when you start to develop those templates. And the thing here, when I say templates, I feel like templates usually are pretty things. With AI and LLMs, it's not a pretty thing. So it's very, very different from what I used to think of as templates. Templates could be probably just 3 sentences. Templates could be just tables that are very specific. And so once you start to build it from there, that plug and play really starts to matter. And it's building those habits. So the last one really much is about building those habits. So the block time for AI assisted work equals very much consistency with compound leverage. Feel like right now everybody's in the space because AI is such a big thing. Everybody's in the space where we play with AI here and there. There's some things that we can repeat, some things that we can't repeat just yet. But the thing that I have found, especially with working with startups, is sometimes when there's limitations with the LLM, you can teach the LLM to make itself smarter so it can meet you. So it may not be able to give you what you need right now, but if you keep that consistency with the LLM, in 2 to 3 months, it'll be a conversation that was just a sentence. And so very much what I've been talking about is that AI is not magic. I feel like a lot of people talk about it as this thing that's we don't know where it's gonna go. It's very much a repeatable thing. So here is you guys now. So before this conversation, very much without the world without AI, there was open blank doc stairs. I actually still have some of these myself. There's the 30 minutes to draft an email, right? So it's writing that sentence, then rewriting that sentence, then saying, okay, maybe that sentence should go at the top. No, maybe it should go down at the bottom. There's the 15 minutes of the editing loop. There's the 10 minutes of formatting. There's the 5 minutes of rereading again. For me, this used to be about 20 to 25 minutes because English is my second language. So I would always put in some Spanish words in there, and then people would ask me like, hey, what is this word? So it was a total of 60 minutes, right? After AI, with an AI operator, you can have an open prompt template. It would take about 2 minutes max to run through AI. It would be about 3 minutes to review and personalize. And so actually this 3 minutes is really important because one of the things that we had without AI before is a lot of our time would be spent on drafting the thing or the email in this example. Now most of our time will be spent on just editing, which is a different sort of component. And so those 3 minutes of review and personalizing is where most of the time will be. And then the 1 minute of sending. And so you take a 60 plus minute task into a 6-minute task. And so question to you, and let me bring up the chat, is raise your hand or give me a thumbs up of what task would you like to automate first? Let's see. And you guys can drop it in the chat if you'd like. I don't see any. Maybe I'm missing it. Well, I talk about the email one. Oh, perfect. So overview of my email. I have lots and would like AI to handle all of them for me. Email is probably the best one because email platforms, documentation is really, really good. README files are also very, very good. Things like that they live in very structured software. So for email, most likely you either have Apple or you have Google, or there's in-house email. It's a very structured thing. And so with AI, the first time that you do the emails, if you tell it what software you're using, it'll give you the ability to actually, it'll give you actually prompts where you can just copy and paste them. You guys may find sometimes that when you're doing something like an email and then you copy and paste it, the formatting's a little off or it's a little funky. So small things like that of like just letting it know what software or what you're trying to do, that is something that actually is really helpful. And so in the interest of time, we're going to skip the little bit. My hope was to go through a live session with you guys, but I have a little bit more to go through. So what we can do is we can talk about it a little bit more later if we have some time at the end. Or we can talk through the different things. But thank you guys for Excel data is a good one. Actually, Excel data is the best. I feel like it's the one that we used to talk about when I was a media executive for the executives that actually didn't do a lot of like the being in the Excel documents. They always used to talk about like the documents were so big and they were so heavy. And we would always have, like, if people worked from home, if they opened up a document and there was screen sharing, it would just, like, they would just leave the meeting. And so with Claude, it's been really helpful to take those Excel documents because so many people still use them, and actually put them into digestible formats. And so I'm going to go back to the presentation. So how really, I've been talking about it very nonchalantly, but I wanted to have a slide specific to how this changes your career. It very much will make you faster. So I've been doing this for a while now. I've been doing the AI implementation, and I've been doing workshops actually with either companies or individuals. And I've been keeping track of this. So on average, it's made people 10 plus hours faster, or it has given them the ability to claim at least 10 plus hours of their weekly time. That time is back for you. I just did a workshop with teachers, and it was really, really interesting because a lot of the teachers hadn't used AI. And so the first step was, okay, let's get you an OpenAI account, or let's get you a Claude account. And right now with that cohort of teachers, they are saving about 25 plus hours a week on things that they had spent so much time on. And so they were talking about how now, instead of having to write things of like IEPs and like things that they needed for the district, they actually get to teach. And so they've been really excited about this opportunity. And they were saying that was something that with everything that's been happening, it was kind of lost. Like they didn't have a lot of time for the students. And now they have so much time to actually get to know the students and be able to actually have things more organic to how students learn. And it was really cool to see that. The other thing here is that it'll make you more strategic. So you can lead the room, not just fill it. A perfect example of what I gave is AI is such a new thing right now that everybody doesn't know where it's going to go. And even the people that know the most still don't know where it's going to go. So I mentioned the example of what I've seen as success, the individuals that have these prompt libraries, sharing it with the rest of the team or sharing it with executives will very much help in those strategic conversations, because even executives don't know where AI is going to go. So if they see an opportunity where there's an immediate things can go faster, it actually helps you lead that conversation and learn in the process, which is something I love. The other thing, very much to what I've been speaking to, is it makes you more visible. And this is very much in having that thought of, okay, AI is a thought partner. Like it's the friend that knows everything, and it's the friend that's going to teach me these things instead of the friend that does everything for you. And so it gives you more visibility. You can really be that person that they call when AI matters. And the thing that I love, I worked at startups, I worked in the corporate world, is I mentioned that I was at the beginning of the social media phase, the beginning of the streaming phase. The AI phase is so similar to me in that, because it evens the playing field where not one person knows more than the other, in the sense that nobody knows where this is going to go. And so when that even playing field happens, that means that a lot of these hierarchies and a lot of things, that rules that have been set of this person's the person that knows this, or this person is the person that knows this, with AI, if you're thinking of it through a thought partner, as a thought partner, it very much gives you that competitive edge into being more visible and to actually being able to solve problems that everybody's kind of too scared to solve because they don't know exactly where AI is going to go. And so for me, this is very much a strong belief for me. We were never behind. We were just waiting for the right tool. And so to me, this is it. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about a personal story. So I mentioned the social media streaming. One of the things that I always get asked is like, okay, how did you do it? And I thought, okay, I come from a big family, a lot of different personalities. So you can navigate a lot of different personalities. I'm not the only one. It's very much a part of our Latin culture, that communication, that striving, the not knowing like how things are going to go. I think I mentioned at the beginning, I'm the first in my family to go to college. I'm the first one to graduate from college. And so very much navigating that on your own. To me, that skill set that you developed is actually something you can leverage in the workplace and that you can leverage with AI because you're figuring it out as you go. And so this tool to me makes our Latino community so powerful because it cannot replace a lot of the things that our community has, which is the beautiful storytelling, the beautiful music, and very much like the joy of life that we bring to our careers. Perfect. Okay. So we move para adelante together. And so for me, right here, let me look at the time just to make sure I don't go over for you guys. I know it's been a day. I want to make sure I'm respectful of your guys' time. Okay. So AI is not neutral. Latinate voices must help build it. And so not just use it. And that's the big thing that I have always been vocal about, very much with any technology. When you see things like on social media, right? The videos that do more, the most streaming artist, right now is Latin, right? So there is something that we can leverage when we look at AI as that thought partner. And we help build that voice. And so access matters. So sharing what you learned today with one person in your community, that is, I think, 10x. So the way that I did this presentation, I know Amber mentioned that it's going to be available to you guys, is very much you guys can take this presentation and send it to everybody. The idea is that people don't have to go through the whole presentation. They can just look at those 4 blocks and say, okay, like, let me try this today. And it's very much a let me try. The community matters. So connecting with 3 people in this room before you leave today. I've been looking at the chat and I've joined a couple of the sessions. You guys have been doing a great job of that already. And the big thing for me is AI shouldn't be something that happens to us. I believe we're operators. I believe it's in our culture to be operators. I believe we're builders, very much in our culture to be builders. And it's very much something that I see as an opportunity for us. And so the next 3 steps, if there is anything that happens from this presentation, is I would love for you to walk out with these and do them either this week or next week. So very much the step 1 that I had talked about. So it's identifying just one workflow. And so picking the task that steals your mornings, open your notes app right now and write it down. One workflow, that's it. So that's something that you could do today or this week or next week. Second one is applying an AI tool. So the 2 tools that we all know are Claude and ChatGPT. I find it interesting. ChatGPT is, from my experience, is not very great with math. Sometimes you can give it simple math problems and it'll tell you 2 + 2 is 5. It might just be my experience. I've met a couple of people that have mentioned that it's also their experience. So for things that are quantitative or a little bit deeper thinking, Claude does a really good job of it. And it's because a lot of the research that the fellows do gets uploaded into their memory, whereas ChatGPT relies on more public sources. So it could be something from like X. Sometimes you'll get results and it'll be something from X that isn't necessarily true or that you just have to fact check a little bit more. And so when you're thinking about tools, Goose is actually one that I just started using that is really, really good for operational tasks. So if you guys are in operations, it's doing a really good job with its agents. So my hope is that you apply any of those tools, paste your task, run it, and really the imperfect action meets perfect in action every time. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I would say that I've learned from working with AI the last couple of years is I mentioned templates, I mentioned workflows. They don't have to be pretty. They don't have to be understandable to anybody outside of yourself. Well, the thing that is really fascinating with AI is it can take your very, very raw notes. It a lot of times has follow-up questions, or you can ask it if something's not clear and you can have that conversation with it and it'll tell you like, oh, actually this point isn't clear to me. So here's where I'm making my assumptions. One of the things that I will say that's been really, really helpful, just to keep it, is if you keep updating these, putting in prompts and not getting the right information. The first thing I mentioned was you can ask it like, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Can you give me the prompt to give you so that you can actually give me this data? The other thing that you can do is you can ask it not to hallucinate, which it does. When you ask it not to hallucinate, it actually does a really good job. You can ask it after it gives you, like, say it gives you an answer that you're like, wait, where did it get this information? You can ask it to state its sources. And then that's when you'll see, like, oh, it got this from X, like not necessarily something that I want to cite in either my research paper or in my presentation to executives. You can also ask it what assumptions it's made. A lot of times these tools have to make assumptions. And so the idea is, I think for most people, they're not aware that all these assumptions are embedded in that response. You can actually ask it that. And I keep talking about it as being the thought partner, but it's also a very, very, it's kind of an LLM that doesn't lie. You just have to ask it the very specific questions, and that'll help you build out those prompts and those workflows and those libraries. And so the third part is very much about making it repeatable. And so it's saving the prompt, screenshots your results, teaching one person in your community, and your win becomes their win. And that's very much how I work, and why I wanted to present to you guys. I think if I were to look at the prompts that I had 2 or 3 years ago and compare them to my library now, they're completely different, because now I've been able to actually understand the LLM a little bit more. And it's really one of those things that you just got to get in there. Like you just have to start it. Like you just have to get in there, start pushing the buttons and start seeing like what you get. And then seeing like, okay, that's not what I was expecting. I needed to be a little bit more formal, or I needed to be not as formal. And so my hope for you guys is that this is helpful. So now you guys are the AI operators, and no pressure, but the community is watching. And so the bonus that I wanted to have for you guys was very much talking through the tools, providing you guys with the toolkit. Like I said, I've done this for a couple of people. So I've done this for a couple of startups. I've done this for a group of small businesses in Nevada and California. I recently did this for teachers, and everybody is building their own prompt library. My hope is that you guys can do the same. And so I would want to provide you guys this toolkit. And so knowing that I'm at the end of the day, very much if you guys want to take a screenshot of this slide, is very much the tool. So I mentioned Claude, ChatGPT, very good for drafting research prompts. Notion AI is surprisingly extremely good for notes. And things like SOPs, if some of us have to do that. Notion AI is also very, very good for team docs. And that one was actually something that I learned in the last couple of months. There was one startup that I was working with where the product manager was using it for notes, and they had most of their library on Notion. So it was able to actually read a lot of their actual documentation. So it was really awesome. It made it really smart. Otter AI is very good for meeting summaries. I mentioned Google has a summary recap if you do Google Meets. It's also very good. Sometimes if you have the meeting and then some people stay on, it'll summarize some of that conversation as well. So then it sort of tends to draft it as a summary. So that's the one part where AI is still limited. And then Perplexity. Perplexity is very good for live research without sources. A lot of times we'll see statistics, but they're not necessarily stated where they're coming from. Perplexity does a very good job, very beautiful job actually, of explaining some of that for live research and sources. And so prompt templates. So there's things like email drafts that I've talked about. It sounds like it's a big pain point for a lot of you folks. There's replies and there's cold outreach. A lot of people use it for text. So say you want to, like say you get it. So I'm an introvert. A good example for me is I'm an introvert. I get invited to a lot of things and I want to say no, but in a heartfelt way. So when I do a reply through LLM, then I'll go through it and I say, can you reshape it in a more heartfelt way? Like I want to make sure that they know, I want to go, but I can't at this time. And so there's things like that that you can have prompt templates for. There's meeting prep and recaps. So those are things that are consistent for all of us, most likely. There's resume optimizer and interview prep. This is really helpful, especially if you're trying to go into a different industry, because it very much does a beautiful job of rewriting your resume by outlining your skill set. And then research deep dives. Research deep dives, it can be anything. So for marketing teams, there's the quantitative research and the qualitative research. In my thesis and my actual research that I'm doing right now, I'm actually part of a fellow group at Berkeley right now. And a lot of times we'll have these very, very thick papers that are 100+ pages that you normally used to have to read. And so the cool thing about that now is you can upload it to AI. You can talk about what you're trying to research, and you can say, extract the information that's relevant to me. And that used to take a lot of time. And things like that are actually really helpful if you're using AI as a thought partner. It also will help you actually identify things that you may not see yourself. And that's been a big unlock for a lot of people because sometimes when you're pulling a report or you're doing research, say in a corporate setting or just a business setting, there's a certain result or a certain question that you want answered. Oftentimes, if you're doing research through AI, or if you're leveraging AI, what has been really helpful is that you find that the question that you wanted to answer isn't the question that you should be asking. And sometimes if you're straightforward with AI, you can ask it. So I've done it of, is this the question that I should be asking? And then they'll respond. And actually my LLM now with OpenAI with ChatGPT knows me so well now that it actually says, Erika, sweetie, that's not the question. So it's actually very nice to me, which is, it's a double-edged sword because I find it endearing, but it's also like, oh my gosh, it actually knows how I like to be spoken to. But you can ask it of, is this the research question that I should be answering? And it will actually tell you, no, like this is the question that you should be answering if you're trying to grow 10x%, or if you're trying to do this. And so it really is helpful in having those conversations. The other thing with this toolkit is very much, I encourage you guys all to keep learning. One thing is you guys are here. And for some of you guys, it's later in the day. So I appreciate you guys staying on, but there's a Notion resource page. I can put that in the link in the chat, and then I can put it actually at the end of the presentation. And then there's the community here, which has been extremely helpful. A big shout out to Amber, who's been coordinating all this in the back and has been doing a very beautiful job of making sure that this is helpful to you guys. Very much having like things like AI monthly workflow drops for free. There's a lot of different workshops that are happening out there for AI. Sometimes it's people trying to get you to sign up for something, and sometimes they're really helpful. I mentioned I'm going to have one. So if you guys actually look at my Notion page, which is on my speaker page at the bottom, I have a form for you guys to sign up. You guys don't have to pay anything. It's very much free, and it's very much building on this conversation and this presentation. And it's very much so live office hours is something that I do for startups, but I wanted to extend it to the community here. AI is such a big thing, and I've been talking about things in a very generalized term. And then when I go into examples, I go into very specific examples. But if you guys want to reach out, here's my contact information. And then I mentioned my Notion page. So if you look at the bottom, you can contact me there or fill out a form for the workshop. I am more than happy to help with this. So I can share my prompt library with you guys. I can help you navigate if you have like a very specific thing that you're just really frustrated with and that you don't know what to do with. I can help you guys. And so with that, I might get to let you guys go a little bit early. Let me pull you guys in front of me over here. Let's see. Awesome, guys. Oh, thank you, Amber. I really hope that this was helpful, guys. Like I said, this presentation will be available to you guys. You guys can reach out. More than happy to help. I think I mentioned I mentioned to you guys my background, but also I very much believe in this community, and I think that we have a lot to say as a community, and a lot to give, and a lot to add to that table. Awesome. Perfect, guys. Well, if there is nothing else, you guys get 3 minutes back. I hope everybody enjoyed this time.